Welcome, dear viewer, to the most niche video on the internet, the X-Men Legends character analysis. I can't say no one asked for this, no, just one guy. I am a man of the people, or in this case, person. So here I am. Will I get attention and fame from this? No. Money? $1 at most. Will I enjoy making this? Maybe. As I highlighted in my X-Men Legends retrospective, this game is incredibly busted. Many characters don't work, others work too well. For the sake of brevity, I did not go into exceptional depth on this fact. Here is the detailed part. To recap on the design of Legends, the stats system is kinda bad, and is incredibly relevant for deciding character viability. Every character has striking, agility, body, and focus. Body increases health, focus increases your energy points for powers. Simple as. Striking and agility, meanwhile, are weird. The game never specifies this anywhere, but there are armor classes at play. Whenever any attack is made, a calculation is made to determine whether or not that attack deals damage, comparing the attack and defense of the parties involved. If a character has low striking, they won't be able to hit anything, in theory. If a character has high agility, they will be untouchable. In theory. Don't believe their lies. The calculation is thrown out entirely in most cases. You can't dodge bullets, missiles, lasers, or any projectile for that matter. It's only relevant for physical striking. For this reason, agility is a useless stat that rarely comes into play. It is universally better to pump points into body to increase your health pool. Striking, meanwhile, is mostly useless. Many X-Men have upgrades that imbue their physical strikes with psychic or energy damage, which also completely bypasses the strike calculation. Therefore, these characters only really have two stats, body and focus, while other characters like Beast, Rogue, or Colossus have to play by the rules and divide their points between three stats. Even with a high enough striking, these characters will still be doing physical damage less than the rest of the cast, because those psychic and energy upgrades have incredibly vertical damage outputs. For this analysis, I will conform to popular norms and implement a handy-dandy tier list. I will go through the characters in their order of appearance in the game. To start, Wolverine. He's fine. I'll put him in B, but only because he's arguably the strongest character in the early game because of his scaling. His Brutal Slash has very favorable scaling at early levels, letting him outpace all other characters damage-wise in the opening stages. By late game, he really is just middling at best. Of all of the tank-like characters, he's still the best, because he actually has damage upgrades, so he doesn't need a million points in striking like they do. In short, you can reliably have him on your team throughout the entire game. Fun fact, Wolverine's attack animations where he kicks do not get the sharpness benefit, because clearly he doesn't have claws in his feet. They could have just made all of his attacks do more damage and no one would have noticed, but they very specifically made sure that only his claws got the buff. Pretty cool, I think. A few notes about his upgrades. His healing factor is a red herring. Putting points into that early will leave you underpowered because the healing is only active when out of combat. Healing potions are plentiful in this game, so the healing factor is useless. Invest in your Brutal Slash, Sharpness, and crit rate early on. Like all B specials, his B special is incredibly weak at first, so avoid it until later. His boost is a novelty that increases speed and the useless stat of agility. Only get it if there's nowhere else to put points. Honestly, the same can be said of all boost moves in the game. I got through just fine without them, so maybe there's a way of building around them that I never played with before. If you think I got something wrong there, leave a comment about it, let me know your experience. Next up, Cyclops. Easy S tier. In my retrospective, I said that Jean Grey was the strongest without contest, but now I'm not so sure. Cyclops absolutely shreds. He is a one-dimensional character, but his one dimension is very good. He doesn't have physical damage upgrades, so he can't brawl, but he doesn't need to. His accuracy upgrade can give him up to 10% crit rate fairly early on, which is pretty good odds when you just keep on spinning to win. He also has a point-blank shot, which just adds an additional 50% damage scaling to his beam at close range. His leadership gives greater damage bonuses for team combos, multiplying his damage even further, so Cyclops is the go-to for shredding sentinels and bosses. You can just ignore his optic sweep and tactics boost, they're both useless. Magma. F. This character blows. Early game, she's barely okay, but in the late game, she's abysmal. She has energy damage scaling, but in late game, power usage is the meta, and her powers are just the absolute worst possible. Her A special is a split projectile with awful scaling. It sort of works like a really low damage shotgun blast that knocks enemies backwards, except you don't want enemies to be knocked backwards. You want them to stay put so you can continue shotgunning them. And her B special is just fucking slow. It's really goddamn slow. And it doesn't do much damage, so there's not really much she can do. Next, Jean Grey. B tier. In my retrospective video, I said she was the best character in the game, and I was super wrong. I thought this because she has a boost that says it adds an additional 150 damage flat to mental attacks. She's a mental character, so that means all of her attacks, right? No. Apparently mental means attacks that affect the minds of others, which is just her B special and not telekinesis. I just thought she was doing 300 damage per A special, but after bothering to look at the screen, I found that this was not the case. I had deceived myself. Granted, she's still a fine character. The speed and damage of her attacks is quite good. It just isn't the best like I had dreamed into reality. Rogue. F. She is bad. She lacks damage upgrades. I mean, you can get grappling, but that's not really the same. That just makes it so you deal damage back to enemies when they strike you. It's a pathetic amount of damage to deal back, and why would you waste your time with that when you can just have another character tag in and just slaughter them instead of waiting around to be striked? Because she doesn't have a real damage upgrade, she will miss attacks frequently and deal subpar damage when she actually hits. Her powers are unimpressive. Her punch has okay damage, making her a bit better than Magma, but it's still not much being able to hit one dude at a time with a really slow attack. Her power steal move stuns, which would be neat if your AI companions didn't interrupt the stun. Most enemies in the game don't have powers to steal in the first place, and the ones you can steal are worthless. It's a pathetic novelty. Iceman. B. Early game, he's just okay, but late game, his ability to completely freeze enemies in their tracks, as well as buff teammates, it's pretty good. His Ice Spikes move is quite awful though. Don't invest in it. The split projectile has a pathetic damage output, just like Magma's, and that's even if you do it point blank with every piece of the attack landing. When given the opportunity to level it up, just don't. It doesn't work so well for him. Just invest in Cold Smash for brawling and Deep Freeze to incapacitate foes. Get Ice Armor if you get really bored, I guess. Storm. A. Storm has upgrade scaling for her Lightning Strike that is identical to Cyclops, but conspicuously, she does not have the accuracy upgrade, so you can't land those juicy crits like Cyclops can. In addition, she doesn't have a point-blank shot for 50% damage boost. Despite this, she boasts an impressive damage output. She has access to Chain Lightning in later levels, which can clear entire rooms. If she had that throughout the entire game, she'd be an easy S. All in all, she's a well-rounded character. Beast. Beast tier. We fucking hate Beast here. He has the same issues I highlighted for Rogue. He has no damage scaling upgrades, and he's still somehow worse. His pinball move is dumb. Clearly, the vision for the pinball move was to bounce between enemies, but it isn't coded that way. I can roll into one enemy, but I won't travel tangentially to the enemy I just struck. Instead, I will bounce back in the direction I rolled from, along the path that already is clear of enemies. If his pinball move actually worked, he could at least be fun, but this is not the case. The damage is abysmal. Fuck Beast. Jubilee. F. This character doesn't have damage scaling, and you know what that means. No damage! Her power moves are terrible. She has another split projectile like Magma and Iceman, and it fucking sucks too. Her B special can confuse enemies and make them friendly at later levels. This initially made me want to bump her up to a higher tier, and then I realized that if I were just piloting a different character, instead of converting them, I could just have killed them and went on with my day. Nightcrawler. C. I would have given him an A, but this dude is absolutely terrible when you first unlock him. No damage upgrades. If you saw my retrospective, you would know that Wolverine has 10 times the damage output when Nightcrawler first becomes available. However, by mid and late game, Nightcrawler becomes very powerful with his teleport flurry. Nightcrawler has upgrades that boost his teleport attacks to have a crit rate of 25%, and Flurry pumps out 8 strikes by its max level. That's a lot of damage. Nightcrawler is untouchable during the attack's duration, so you can just spam it to clear out rooms. Nightcrawler also has a Leap of Faith upgrade that rescues team members from dying when their health is depleted. I never really got to experience this firsthand because I'm a professional gamer and I never lose, but after reading that description, Nightcrawler's utility seems obviously strong. Gambit. D. He has damage upgrades. Multiple, actually, and all of them suck. After 6 skill points, he can attain an additional 25 damage with physical strikes as compared to the standard 100, and that's not including his strikes with his staff. Those require another 5 points in staff mastery. It's stupid. He is uniquely bad. His staff mastery doesn't even improve his staff slam. Like, they specifically said, you don't actually get to improve that move. Like, at least the move is fast, but you don't get much else other than that. Colossus. D. This guy can punch really fucking hard. And that's about it. His damage scaling for his raw A special is the highest in the game. That's all he can do. He doesn't have damage scalers. I actually reconsidered him after getting this comment claiming that max striking and knockback allowed him to turn enemies into projectiles. It's an intriguing idea, and I hadn't considered it before. I reloaded a save, pumped as many points into strike as I could, and he was so pitiful, unable to land any blows on standard enemies. What am I supposed to do? Have no points in health as Colossus? I cannot stress how bad the characters without damage upgrades are. It's just awful. It's just the worst. The fact that even half of his points in strike left him below Iceman in striking potential cemented my opinion. It ironed it out. It made me steel my resolve. Despite being made of alloys, he doesn't make a very good ally. Emma Frost. D. She's sort of like a slightly better Jubilee. She at least has damage scalers, I suppose. She's viable, at the very least. I just really don't like this character, man. Psylocke. Like a dumbass, I almost put her in B. But while I was doing my research, I realized I had to rewrite my script. This character shreds. S. I previously had played with her A special, completely avoiding her B special, which is one of those split attacks that suck on every character in the game. I naturally assumed that she wouldn't be any different. Except Psylocke has an upgrade that adds an additional 200 points of damage to blade attacks. For her A special, that's pretty good. For a split attack that throws multiple blades, with each individual blade receiving the buff, that's unstoppable. It's a shame you only get her in the last 3 levels of the game, because she's amazing. And that's it. That's the characters. Pocono3764. I hope you're pleased. Have a good night.